So yeah, just to introduce myself, I got involved full-time in crypto back in 21 and started off selling private permission networks. We realized really quickly that wasn't going to fly and pivoted very hard towards public networks and moved most of our business development and go-to-market activities towards things like MetaMask. And security was one of my first big sort of business development initiatives at Consensys. Hence why I'm sort of more comfortable in presenting on this, even though it's a bit outside my day job now. What I'm going to talk about today is, and I actually did this presentation first of all about a year and a half ago internally, and then I did it again at the Zoo Connect event during Dev Connect Istanbul, which was quite fun because just before me on stage was Vitalik, and he sort of had some thoughts about what we were doing, so that was pretty cool. But I'm going to talk a little bit today about something called the cyber kill chain, what we think of as a Web3 cybersecurity chain, sort of like try to sort of make it more applicable to our industry, and then talk a little bit about an immune system for crypto and some ways to get involved. Now Maciek asked me to do a quick intro on Consensys. I actually struggled, this slide goes back about 3 years, so bear with me because we actually don't normally present this, but Consensys is like was set up as a venture studio right at the beginning of when Ethereum was founded, and it was done by Joe Lubin, who was one of the co-founders of Ethereum, and he noticed that there were no tooling to develop smart contracts or help write Solidity. There were no wallets to access the blockchain network. There was a very limited Ethereum client to run the network, and so he basically dedicated a lot of his time to building up an organization that would support Ethereum. And so we've got a number of different focuses. The first focus was on developers, and initially this was through something called Truffle, which was basically allowed developers to develop Solidity. We actually sort of withdrew from Truffle last year because most developers were using Hard Hat, sorry. I'm getting all my terms confused. So basically the market sort of took over and so we had this nice tool, everyone used to use it back in 2018. By sort of 22, very few people were using it. Most people had migrated off to a much better open source tool, and we sort of then stepped back from it. We also had a security audit capability, and we still have, called Diligence, and that sort of provides what I would call tier 1 protocol audits. So we do audits for the likes of Aave, Uniswap, a number of the networks, and it's a small team, but it's a very, very experienced team. We also had a set of private permission blockchain technologies, which we no longer get involved with, but that was a big thing at the time when all the banks were trying to set up their own private versions of Ethereum, let's say. And probably the most important part on the developer part was Infura. This basically was a sort of RPC set of APIs to allow a dApp or a wallet to get access to the blockchain network. Back in 2018, this would have been running about 80% of all Ethereum's traffic. Now it's much, much lower. It's like below 25%. And we've seen the rise of other RPC providers like Alchemy, QuickNode, and many, many others. And so we've got a much healthier sort of distribution of traffic. What we've done with Infura is we're actually decentralizing this now. So that's a big initiative for us to create a new RPC system that's going to be completely decentralized. And we also have the underlying clients. So these are open source initiatives. The Besu client and the Teku client on the Beacon chain, and those basically are our contribution to keeping client diversification within Ethereum, which means that if there's a bug in one of the clients, the network doesn't go down, the network stays up, as long as you've got sufficient client diversification. And we did a lot of work after the merge in getting Teku, Lighthouse, Prism, all of these different clients adopted by the stakers, rather than just have everything in a sort of in a majority client. So that sort of de-risks Ethereum from what I call supply chain attacks and so on. Then on this far side, we've got the actual wallet. We've got MetaMask, which is a well-known wallet. It's like, I think it's 9 years old now. And we've got a love-hate relationship with our ecosystem because they always claim that we don't have a good UI. But we're doing our best and adapting. But it also includes a debit card and lots of features within the wallet to do things like payment, swapping, staking. There's an earn function and so on. We forked the retail client and created an institutional version of the client. And that's also, it's less of a priority for us now because there's so many good institutional clients out there. But it's still available. And then last and not least, the sort of project I'm focusing on at the moment is Linea. It's a ZK EVM layer 2, which basically takes transactions, rolls them up onto Ethereum, and so it basically adds a scalability layer on top of Ethereum. And our plans with Linea, we're going to TG our token next week, and then really try to sort of build up the network usage and ecosystem. And then also sort of, what we're doing here is we've been quite unusual in how we're doing Linea, because rather than having a whole load of investors and insiders and team members get tokens, we've basically just allocated 15% of the tokens to Consensys, locked for 5 years, and then the rest are in an ecosystem fund. So it's going to be one of the larger ecosystem funds, and team members don't get anything. VCs don't get anything, and so hopefully that will allow for a more neutral environment for institutions to come and participate. So if you have participated in any of the programs, there's an airdrop checker now that you can go onto Linea.build and have a look at. In addition to the Linea token, we're also on the MetaMask side issuing a new stablecoin as well. So there's a stablecoin called MUSD. So that's sort of Consensys. It's actually longer than I was expecting to talk about it. But anyway, going back to security. So yeah, security is like sort of one of these things that's really tricky, because as a protocol developer, you've basically, or a wallet, you've got to like protect against every possible attack. And if you fail once, then your reputation is completely gone. So on the MetaMask side, if we have a vulnerability that exposes the keys outside of the wallet, then our entire user base is compromised and our entire business is gone, basically. And it only takes one of those, right? Similarly, as a protocol developer, if you have like an invariant attack and it only happens once, if they drain the liquidity out of your protocol, if they take all the money that's been deposited out, your protocol's dead. And so it's like you can sort of spend all this time sort of building up a reputation, and it just takes one. And this is the challenge with a permissionless system, because in TradFi, they can layer lots of permission gateways and sort of layering of access so that you can't get access to the sort of core systems because they're permissioned. In a permissionless system, everybody has access to protocols. Everyone can look at the source code, everyone can look at what you're doing, and then can try to figure out how to go about attacking it. So I'd say Web3 and crypto is probably one of the most adversarial environments on the internet, because it involves real value, like crypto has become real value. So it's a huge challenge, and it was one of the earlier challenges I was focused on in Consensys, because whilst the secrets within MetaMask were being kept safe, and have been kept safe for like 9 years, our users were being attacked in so many different ways. And I'll give you an example, right? This is a classic one, right? Vitalik had his Twitter hacked, and he then used our brand to suggest a fake claim, which would have, and if you'd gone and done that claim, you would have basically given an approval for your wallet to be drained to a scammer, right? So this is Vitalik promoting a fake airdrop claim about Consensys. We had no control over Twitter. We have no control over Vitalik's account or his profile, and yet our users are then being targeted to go and click on something that's going to basically, and it's not breaking the product, it's just tricking the user into agreeing to giving over all of their assets to the scammer. So it's super, it's been, and we've had this, so many scams going on, it's been so frustrating. And then on the protocol side, tons of protocol exploits, and that means, and there's so many different ways of doing it. Like Curve Finance had like a sort of a re-entrancy vulnerability. There was exploit of multi-chain, like 1.5 billion. And then on the wallet side as well, Bybit had this horrendous attack for 1.5 billion in ETH in February. I was actually in the Bybit office in Hong Kong at the time, which was insane. I had nothing to do with the attack. But this was the Lazarus group, basically doing a very, very sophisticated takeover of Bybit, Bybit safe front ends, and basically tricking the signers when they triggered an ETH transfer out of one of their key wallets. They tricked all of the signers to sign a multi-sig sign to drain the wallet, and they lost it all, and it all got washed through what's the protocol called? It was a sort of Ethereum to Bitcoin bridge protocol, and they are all sort of decentralization axes and refused to intervene and do anything about it. So it was like just
Thorchain, right?
Thorchain, that is it. Thorchain. Yeah, they're really very unhelpful people. So, like these attacks are so varied and so imaginative. We had to sort of, from our perspective, we had to start putting in a lot of measures to try to protect users. And at the time when I was sort of starting off, this was sort of the meme that was thrown at us. Like everything's burning, it's fine, no problem, keep on using the wallet, sort of thing. But the challenge with security is that when you start layering in more and more security, you start to compromise privacy, or you can do. And there's this constant debate within the wallet industry about how much privacy should we give to users versus how much security. And it's actually a triangle, because it's between privacy, security, and decentralization. Those are all sort of balancing factors. And so what we tried to do is to try to maintain both, but it's hard. So the cyber kill chain itself is something that was developed out of Lockheed Martin in 2012, and it was basically trying to identify and stop hackers from penetrating very sensitive, government and I would guess what we call it, like sort of the military-industrial complex systems by hacker groups and state-sponsored hacker groups as well. And they developed this sort of 7-stage process for how do attacks happen. And when we started looking into this, like, the Ethereum community are like a very, I almost term them, they're very sort of like chilled people. They're almost like a slightly hippie, is how I'd call it. And when you go in with like a sort of, right, we need to have like sort of, a cyber security kill chain and so on, they're like, everyone's just like backing off going, I don't want anything to do with this weirdo, he's probably an FBI agent or, a Fed or whatever, and like, we don't want anything to do with it. So the kill chain is quite militaristic in language, and the Ethereum community just really wasn't in for it. So nevertheless, within Consensys, we started to map out what what we'd call a cybersecurity chain would look like. And we basically adopted the similar terms apart from one, which was, we called this one, rather than, I think it's installation, it was called acquisition. And I'll talk a little bit about each stage now. The first stage is a reconnaissance, and what they're trying to do is the attackers basically trying to target where they're going to go after funds. So they're either looking for funds within a wallet or funds within a smart contract. And the best thing to do here is to try to separate your in real life identity from your on-chain identity, and don't let people link the two together. Because the wallet, everyone's going to be able to see your wallet. But if they can then sort of work out, this wallet is owned by X person who's got this email address, I can start to send them emails, I can start to send them text messages and so on. So, you know, like any sort of analytic scripts to link wallet addresses to real world identities should be blocked. And, you know, if you've got a very valuable wallet, then don't connect it unless you really, really have to dApps. Just use hot wallets or disposable wallets for more degen stuff. On the weaponization side, the attacker's now basically developing a malicious smart contract, or they're developing, like it's a script kiddie that's developing a phishing site. Now, there's nothing we can do to stop them developing that stuff. They're just going to go ahead and develop it. So we just sort of treat weaponization phase as more of an education thing. We want to get people to use hardware wallets, multi-sigs as well, actually, I should have mentioned that as well. Obviously not sharing secret recovery phrases. You'd be amazed at how many people share those. And the number of support requests we get where people have just said, I've lost everything. I handed all my stuff over to a fake MetaMask support guy. And so we set up MetaMask Learn to help with a whole load of assets around security. And the MetaMask support site also has like a staying safe in Web3 section as well. On the Linea side, what we're doing is we're focusing in on auditing. We're doing lots of different, but at this stage, we're looking at audits to make sure that the protocols that get deployed onto Linea are, don't have vulnerabilities in them. And so our own contracts, we use OpenZeppelin and Diligence, actually a couple of others now. And then our ecosystem, we've just pulled in a whole load of other audit companies to provide service. And then we've also got a bug bounty program with Immunify as well. On the delivery side, the attacker now on the delivery, what he's trying to do is take the first steps to deploy the attack. Now, this is usually done on the wallet side through like a phishing email or some sort of social engineering. And it's usually something that's too good to be true, and they'll try to make it like a time constraint on it, and so they'll try to make you go fast. I'll give an example of one that happened real time while I was actually on a phone call with one of our execs. So this exec, I'm not going to name him, though he actually did write a whole white paper about it internally for us. This exec was in between a call that he had with other fellow execs and myself, and he had like 2 minutes. And somebody on his Telegram retweeted or resent him a link to a fake Porsche NFT claim. And his daughter, for some reason, was very into Porsches. Not in the sense that she owned one, but just the brand. And they had this family joke that one day she would own a Porsche, and they would always buy her little mini cars rather than the real thing. And he thought it'd be really funny to buy her a Porsche NFT and give it to her and say, I've got your Porsche. Anyway, so he only had 2 minutes because he had to jump on a call with me. And so he was click, 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 and then approve. And he jumped on the Zoom call with me and he said, Ian, just give me a second. And then I could see him go red. And then he said, I think I've done something really stupid. And then I said, whatever you've done, revoke as fast as possible. And so he went onto a revoke site, and basically we both watched as all of his hot wallet funds started getting drained, and he couldn't revoke as fast as the drainers could get at. So he lost pretty much everything. All of his ENS airdrop was lost, which was a real shame. Anyway, but it's just interesting because he's been in the industry for like, I don't know, at that time he'd been in the industry for 8 years or something insane, and he knew better. but he just couldn't help himself. They just had orchestrated it so beautifully. Anyway, so yeah, you just get, there's always something, they're always out to find, human vulnerabilities are really strong. So yeah, one of the challenges here as well is that we used to see a lot of users downloading fake MetaMasks. And so we also urge everyone to use the official MetaMask, or official Rabi, or official safe websites to get access to the wallet. And as I said, just use hot wallets if you have to connect. And these are a couple of interesting ones that I had more recently, which is like a text from Joe, which wasn't Joe, obviously. And I don't know why, but these hackers always like to put the surname in as well. It's really odd. So that's the biggest giveaway. But some people fall for this. I don't know why. I don't know how. But anyway, they're trying to sort of suck you into conversation and then get you to either give your secrets away or click on a malicious link. And this is just sort of the classic sort of phishing email that we get a lot of, where you on a daily basis we receive fake agreements, fake airdrops, fake sort of grants, programs, and all that sort of stuff. So it's all probably from the Lazarus Group or a few others. So on the security side, we have phishing detection on the wallet itself. So if you go to any website in the browser with the extension installed, you'll get a pop-up basically saying this is a deceptive site. Even if you haven't opened the wallet itself, you'll still get the red warning. And that is managed through a combination of Chain Patrol, Wallet Guard, who we recently acquired, and the Security Alliance as well. And so, yeah, this has been a very difficult and long project for us to get this right, because what we noticed originally was we would update the wallet every 30 minutes with new phishing sites, and so the script kiddies started creating sites and then taking them down within 30 minutes. So the actual updates, so we had to then bring this down to like less than 2 minutes to try to beat the script kiddies. So it's just a constant game of cat and mouse. The next stage is the exploitation. So they've sent you this convincing message, and they want you to sign a transaction or to get you to share your secrets, or they might be targeting the actual protocol or the bridge on the network itself. At this stage, you've just got to make sure that you're working with a trusted protocol. And on the network side, what we're doing is we're working with event engines to try to detect these malicious transactions as they get triggered. So every transaction is public, so we can see them. So we've got these sort of very sort of clever sort of AI-based security providers who are monitoring these new transactions and checking whether they're malicious and whether they're targeting protocols. And then what we do is we monitor our own bridge with Exegate to make sure that there's no invariances. So if we see that there's something weird happening on either side of the bridge, then we'll have a whole series of security operations set of protocols to freeze transactions until we know what's going on. And then there's ecosystem monitoring from a sort of risk management perspective. So that's more like sort of trying to evaluate the risk of cascading liquidations and so on. The acquisition side is in the traditional space. Like, acquisition is where they're trying to actually install a bit of malware on your computer. Here, what they're trying to do is to get you to approve the transaction to give the spending limit to them, so that they can just drain. So really, at this stage, what you just need to make sure is that on any wallet that you're using, that you've got the security features turned on. Most wallets now have good security provided by the likes of Blockade, and the way that most wallets integrate to Blockade via an API, so they send the transaction to Blockade. Blockade says good or bad. We've decided not to do that because we are a bit nervous about sharing transactions outside of the wallet. We think we want to keep the privacy, and we don't want third parties to know what our users are planning to do. So what we agreed with Blockade was that we would do the entire simulation inside the wallet, and that the warning would pop up inside the wallet. So we don't actually need to make a network connection or an API call to share what you're about to do. We just do the analysis in the wallet itself. It's very complicated, but we're really proud of this. It's called Privacy Preserving Offline Security Module. Command and control is when they've got the actual authority to spend your, you've given the allowance via an approve or a permit, then they've got the approval, or if they've managed to install something on your computer, they're now trying to get your secrets. Really, at this stage, you've lost control of your wallet. So what you've got to do is try to revoke any, and it's a little bit too late usually, but it's best to be able to know exactly which revoke engine you'd go to and what you'd do. And secondly, use the revoke engines regularly to actually get rid of all the approvals that you've made in case they're malicious. Because sometimes these actors try to build up a store of approvals over months and then trigger the drain at one point. And so if you can get rid of the old approvals, then so use revocation engines as a sort of sanity for your hot wallets. Well, and other wallets as well, but hopefully you're just using hot wallets. And we've got a whole lot of materials on the support page around how to revoke allowances on the wallet. Actions on objectives is the last phase, and this is where basically they're draining, right? They're doing the transfer out. At that point, you've not only lost control of your wallet, but you've lost your funds. And really, all you can do is just call support. And then there might be some other sort of sort of front-running techniques where you can sort of try to front-run the malicious transaction. I'm not convinced that works. And so our focus has never been on post-transaction signing security. We've always tried to avoid the user actually doing the signing. Yeah, so that's sort of the, I won't repeat, but these are all the summary of all the recommendations. Now, the challenge is that, you know, if I'm asking like my father or my uncle to do this, it's like a lot. So we need to start pushing more and more of this responsibility into the UI and into the networks and into the wallets, and take it away from the user. So this brings us on to establishing a Web3 immune system. We talk about the immune system because like it's very much a similar sort of concept where, you know, we use language like protection, shielding, fighting off colds, batting the flu, and so on. And we believe we have to have a similar sort of immune system for Web3 because Web3 consists of lots of different layers, all with different vulnerabilities, but also with different options for security. So you've got wallets, you've got networks, you've got protocols, you've got vaults, etc., etc. And those sort of act like sort of different, you know, you could have immunity at a society level, you can have immunity within a family, you can have immunity within parts of your body, and so on. So it's a very similar concept, and both are sort of almost permissionless, if you know what I mean. You know, the flu virus is like everywhere and can attack us any time. Same on Web3 with crypto, with the hackers. In terms of getting involved, if you're really interested in this stuff, you know, follow the Security Alliance. This was set up by Sam Soon, awesome guy. He's sort of pulled together a group of white hats, and they've been very instrumental in improving our phishing detection. And we've done a lot of work with him on that and his team. He's now got something very interesting called a safe harbor. So if you're developing a new protocol and you're willing to let a white hat drain your protocol to protect your funds and then return them to you, then you go to the safe harbor section, sign up for the safe harbor agreement, that then allows the white hats to do that without being sued. Because if a white hat goes into a random protocol and drains it when they see something's wrong, they can often get sued by the protocol for basically, because the protocol gets upset by them. But the safe harbor protects the white hat and allows the white hat to then come in and intervene before someone attacks the protocol. They also do things like war games where they will sort of like bring a whole lot of white hats to really stress test a new protocol, and they've got a whole ton of frameworks. And then they've got Seal 911, which is a sort of panic button. If as a protocol you've been attacked, you call Seal 911, they'll pull together a group, and they will then coach you on how to manage the attack, including things like, you know, how to negotiate fund return and that sort of stuff. So, and they'll also try to maybe use white hats to go after the people who attacked you as well. So they're very, very good, and I would highly recommend, if you're developing a protocol, to maybe donate a little bit, maybe sign up the safe harbor, and if you're interested in security stuff, contribute. Yeah, and then it just always, in this stuff, we're always sort of thinking about this like balance between decentralization, user privacy, and user security. You know, it's a constantly evolving environment where